Come on in. Welcome to Idle Down, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about 5 classic Survivor challenges that should stay in the past forever. They should not come back. Keep these away from me. Last week, I took a look at 5 of my favorite past Survivor challenges that I wanted to see again in the new era. Classic challenges we all know and love that would be a welcome return to Survivor all these years later. Now it's time to look at the other side of the coin. These blasts from the past can just go ahead and stay there. Now, these aren't just any old challenges. By classic, I mean it appeared at least a few times, was well received or at least notorious upon its debut, and would be pretty recognizable to your average Survivor fan. So, yeah, the stilt walking or flying a kite challenges suck, but they're not classics. We got it? All that said, let's dig into 5 classic Survivor challenges that should never come back. At number 5 is Buggin' Out, the Gross Food Challenge. This was a Survivor classic that appeared in all of the first 8 seasons and somewhat regularly since, and was last seen in Survivor Ghost Island. In this challenge, the survivors compete in one-on-one heats, chowing down whatever grub Jeff puts in front of them. I mean, literally, grubs. Memorable meals of challenges past include larvae, spiders, pig snouts, fresh cow blood, Bafaru, and balut. The list goes on. This is easily one of Survivor's most famous challenges, but I think we can safely retire this one for a few reasons. 1. Survivor is now permanently in Fiji, and much of this challenge is based upon experiencing some of the local flavor, which would change with each season as Survivor trotted around the globe. It would be pretty hard to come up with unique items to eat for each new iteration when we're in the same location. 2. This challenge can come off as disrespectful to the locals and their food. I don't claim to be a food expert or anything, but some of these quote-unquote gross food items are things people regularly eat in these cultures, or they're foods regularly eaten in these cultures but presented in the absolute worst light possible. The tone can come off as mocking. And 3, this just doesn't have the ick factor it used to. Watching people eat nasty food was like a whole subgenre of reality TV in the 2000s. I mean, remember Fear Factor? But now the novelty's definitely worn off. Look at the Ghost Island iteration of this challenge. It's just a speed eating competition. Hardly anyone even bats an eye at eating this stuff, and Angela seems oddly into it. You're just unlikely to get a Jervis-level reaction from a modern cast, and contemporary audiences have seen this all before. If you're still lamenting the loss of this challenge though, I get it, it was a Survivor classic, but I personally think its time has passed. If you're still missing it though, the ghost of the Gross Food Challenge does live on in the Applebee's sponsorship. At number 4 is any challenge with a judge. These types of reward challenges were very common in the first 10 seasons of Survivor. The players are tasked with creating an SOS signal on their beach or a sturdy shelter at their camp. Then a local survival expert, pilot, or construction contractor would judge which tribe pulled off the task best. Now, don't get me wrong, these challenges have produced some memorable moments, from Big Tom's stinky feather to Rupert's drowning simulator to Karor's cute got food SOS. But there's a critical problem with these challenges, in my opinion: the use of an outside judge as the sole arbiter of who wins. I'm not saying that Survivor's ever cooked the books on this. In fact, I'm pretty sure they haven't, but the potential for that abuse is there. I mean, the shelter building challenge in Survivor Palau, where they built a bathroom, was literally judged by a Survivor production designer on staff. They couldn't find a plumber around here. I guess I just don't like the winner of a challenge coming down to the judgment of one random dude. And if you're gonna have an expert judge the new bathroom, it should be Bob Dog.
Feel about 10 pounds lighter.
Additionally, these challenges can result in a rich getting richer situation, where previous reward winners will obviously have more materials to build their SOS signal or shelter. These challenges were fine in Survivor's heyday, when the show focused more on actual survival elements, but we've moved on. Besides, how can we really trust the judgment of these people anyway? I mean, this guy didn't even like Rupert's shelter. Buddy, the holes in the roof are skylights, not shoddy building. At number 3 is a numbers game. Survivor is renowned for their puzzles. Whether repeat classics or one-offs, almost every Survivor puzzle is both intricately complicated and a beautiful work of art in its own right, so much so that there's a whole cottage industry of puzzle recreators on Etsy. You can say Survivor relies too heavily on puzzles, but you can't say the puzzles themselves aren't consistently impressive. Except for one. A numbers game puzzle is one of the worst puzzles of all time, because it isn't even a puzzle. You still go through all the challenge rigmarole that comes with your standard puzzle challenge, go out through an obstacle course or balance beam, retrieve bags of pieces, come back, solve puzzle when done. But instead of a tough puzzle waiting for you at the end, it's just put these blocks in order from 1 to 100. That this was the final 5 immunity challenge in Survivor Redemption Island is laughable. You're putting baby's first puzzle in your finale. What, did they think it was going to be particularly difficult for this final 5 to count to 3 digits? Okay, actually that might have been the case. Incredibly, they brought this turkey back 2 more times, in Survivor Blood vs. Water and in Survivor David vs. Goliath. In Blood vs. Water, this was the Redemption Island duel that sent Brad out of the game for good. A fitting end, I suppose, for a guy who was infamously numerically challenged. And in David vs. Goliath, they reformatted it to work as the last stage of the first tribal immunity, where it was no longer laughably lame, just forgettable. The problem with a numbers game is, no matter how much you dress it up, watching people order numbers will just never be as visually interesting as watching them do anything else. This challenge, thankfully, has not appeared since season 37, although I do think there is a possibility we see this challenge again in some form or another. Counting 1 to 100 again will make a nice companion to the Doing My ABCs challenge. At number 2, is Shoulder the Load. This was a popular endurance challenge for the first half of Survivor's lifespan. It debuted in Survivor Borneo but went unaired, but since reappeared in Australia, Pearl Islands, Tocantins, and South Pacific. This pre-merge tribal challenge has the survivors pick 1 to 3 representatives to bear a pole on their shoulders, while members from the other tribes strategically put 20-pound weights on them. This was a very memorable challenge in Season 2, when Mike Skupin's pole literally snapped in half, possibly from the massive amount of weight he was carrying on it, or possibly just to get away from Mike Skupin. And this is always an entertaining challenge to watch. The South Pacific iteration is truly wild. Brandon and Jim are both carrying 240 pounds on their shoulders by the end, and their facial expressions look like it. But here's the problem. You know how, your spine is a thing you really don't want to injure, and that putting hundreds of pounds of weight on it concentrated in one tiny spot is usually a bad idea? Dawn's since disclosed that this challenge resulted in 3 crushed vertebrae and permanent nerve damage for her, and I would be shocked if other participants didn't have similarly long-lasting injuries. This one is just needlessly dangerous in my opinion, and no one should be at significant risk of permanent damage to their spine for our entertainment, no matter how iconic the challenge is. Permanent damage to their leg, lip, and chet, yes, but not spine. The classic Survivor challenge that should never come back the most is Piranha Feast. Last seen in Survivor South Pacific. You probably saw this coming. There have been worse challenges in Survivor history, but this is probably the most unpleasant viewing experience, and it hits extra bad in a post-COVID world. Debuting in Survivor Amazon, this challenge has the survivors ripping slabs of meat off of a beef or pork roast with their teeth, then depositing the meat into a basket. The tribe or player who has ripped off the most meat within the allotted time wins. This appeared in Amazon and Fiji, but by far the worst iteration is in South Pacific. In Amazon, this was a tribal reward and immunity challenge. In Fiji, it was an individual reward for a river rafting trip. And in South Pacific, it was a tribal immunity and reward challenge. The winning tribe's spoils in that season, the bucket of meat filled with their spitty meat chunks. Per usual, Survivor goes to Coach to somehow sell this literal garbage reward as a major win.
Yeah! Taste the victory, man. I'm freaking going crazy right now. I'm so excited.
After the challenge, we get a segment at Camp Savai, the challenge losers, where they list off their various injuries from this challenge. Dawn's missing part of a molar, Ozzy's mouth is full of sores, and Elise is very concerned about an impending skin breakout the next day. Aw, don't worry, they'll send you home before then. Still, even putting aside the obvious choking hazard and the clear risk of oral injury, this challenge is just genuinely disgusting to watch, and it should never, ever, ever come back. If I wanted to see stinky, unwashed people greedily dig into a slab of meat face first, I can just go to Thanksgiving. Got nothing else for ya. To help me continue judging Survivor players like I'm that construction contractor at Rupert's Shelter, like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.